That's why I work. It's like, because it's so...
This is why we do it, folks, so Chris can wear different t-shirts.
That's right. That's exactly it. So I can express myself through superhero t-shirts. I own a lot.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Alright, we're back. Episode 10. Can you believe it? Episode 10 of Crosstalk. We've done 10 of these now.
Wow, 10. Crazy.
So, I'm Tim.
I'm Chris.
And today we're talking about the global film market.
That's right.
Chris and I thought it would be a very topical topic.
Topical topic.
To review the global film market. And this is going to be a little different than most of our normal episodes. We're not going to focus specifically on films. I think we'll talk about certain examples, but generally we're going to cover some frameworks.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's just get started. So Chris.
Yes.
How do you feel about the global market as it is affecting the film industry today?
I see a lot of films doing a certain amount domestically, but then doubling, tripling their box office take in foreign markets. Now, I know that you could make the argument that domestic is a small chunk, and then the rest of the world, there's such a huge population discrepancy, but typically, historically, blockbuster films have done better domestically.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's interesting that it's come around the other way, and I believe that it's starting to drive filmmaking, at least motivation for making films. We're getting sequels we might not have otherwise gotten. We're getting extra scenery tacked on to blockbusters to appeal to a foreign market. Best example is the Chinese market, with especially with superhero films. We'll talk about that in a little bit here, but yeah, it's having quite the profound effect, and even as little as 15 years ago, it didn't have this widespread effect as it is now.
Yeah, and I think we're also seeing versions of films in different markets that we wouldn't have seen. Like, so we can talk about edits that are culture specific, but there's also edits that celebrate cultures.
Yeah. Real great example is Zootopia, where they have a different news team per region. They had a different one in South America as North America. They had a different one in Asia Pacific. They had a different one in the European market. So depending on where it was in the world, it actually had different anchors, which was an interesting thing to do to try and appeal to different foreign markets.
What's interesting about that movie is it's dealing with conceptions of race and gender, inequalities.
Yeah.
And it does a fantastic job of dealing with them.
Yes.
But people would argue that they're using animals to supplant these identities. Yeah. And in some ways it sort of further creates that sort of divisive identity.
That's an interesting point.
So I find it interesting that they did that, and I don't think they did a bad job of it by any means. I'm not going that direction with it, but I find it interesting that, it just further raises that question of how do you address identity without creating scrutiny or, oppression or the other,
Yeah. Another example would be in Iron Man 3, they shot some extra scenes that didn't make a North American cut for a Chinese audience specifically. They did the exact same thing in Avengers: Age of Ultron. The Asian scientist character, I believe she was Chinese. She had a lot more screen time in the Asia Pacific market. And I know that China is a very big driver of things like that, extra scenes, or will even actually cut things out of the movie so they can actually get shown in China at all, because I know they're very picky about what they allow in there, right?
Yeah. Which says a lot about the nature of film in terms of it's a commodity. It's an art form, but it's also a commodity. And, we were chatting about this beforehand, but it brings to point that idea that we drove a lot of the decision-making. Not you and I specifically, but
North America.
North Americans.
The domestic box office,
drove the domestic box office 15, 20 years ago. I mean, I would say even more so, like in the 80s, but to the point where we were seeing a lot of films that we thought were really fun and entertaining, but weren't necessarily considered game-changing films.
Yeah.
A lot of critics would say, and I don't know why I did quotes because we're critics too, but a lot of maybe because I'm like, they're not real critics.
I guess,
No, so like a lot of critics would say that there's a period of time when film was in a golden age, and then, you know, as you progress through the 60s and 70s onward, there's significantly less noteworthy or cinematically valuable films. So that was right around the time that you and I were kids, right? Yeah. So we witnessed the blockbuster. So film shifted from being, you know, a storytelling mode that was specifically aiming for like morality tales and things like that, to becoming more of an entertainment vehicle.
Yeah, what we experienced as kids with an event, a huge event, a novelty around blockbusters, I think is probably true in this case now, because it's new to them. So it doesn't necessarily need to be critically good to be wildly successful.
It's effectively a second coming of the entertainment age of film.
Yeah.
But for a global stage.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to put it, I think. Yeah. So you could go through a few different movies, a few different films, some good examples of that, right? You look at something like Terminator Genesis, right? Like, we both saw it. We didn't really think it was that good. It was.
I mean, I bought the movie because I liked the other first couple ones.
Yeah, sure. Completionist or whatever, right? I've seen worse, I've seen better. It's kind of just there. I don't remember that much about it. Yeah. Stop trying to make Jai Courtney happen.
He's just not a good actor.
Yeah. So, but on the other hand, it did well enough domestically so that the intention was for them to kick off a brand new trilogy, which is why I have a bunch of unanswered questions, like who erased his memory and things like that. I remember that part because they kind of beat it to death a little bit.
Yeah.
But it didn't do well at all domestically. So most people thought, well, this is dead in the water and we're never going to have another one. But it did well enough internationally that they've been throwing around the idea of continuing on with it. Mm-hmm. So it did well enough.
Yeah.
So they still turned a profit on it. So we could get that original idea of a trilogy because it did well. And that's something that just wouldn't have been possible 20 years ago.
And it might actually be a critically good movie. There's an opportunity for them to take
the lessons learned from that and make something that's a lot better. Sure, that can happen.
Unless they decide to go the entertainment route, in which case then it'll just be more of the same.
More of the same, yeah.
But
I know you totally love these movies, but Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
Yeah.
That I believe so, a couple $100 million domestically, but. What, 700 or 800 million in foreign markets?
So it made like 4 times.
Yeah, so they are making and you talk about the budget, including marketing, is probably 250, 300 million, right?
Yeah.
That movie's not, and they're making a sequel.
Yeah.
That sequel's not getting made if the foreign market isn't what it's like today.
No.
Because it bombed here.
But you know, it's interesting. That raises another really good point about Disney proproperties. Mm-hmm. So Disney is very well versed in understanding
the foreign market.
The foreign market, I think.
Yeah. They have been doing. Look at a lot of their classics are. You could almost make a case that they're a little geared towards foreign sound music or. It's the other one I'm thinking.
Well, even all the Disney princess movies.
Yeah, Disney princess.
They found a formula that worked.
Yeah.
And they continue it, and they expand upon it.
Yeah.
And you know, there's embellishments for the domestic market because now that we're more sophisticated and mature.
Sure.
But in general, it's the same principles.
They do have a formula, but quite often their formula actually ends up working out that it's good.
Yeah, Disney owns the Marvel property now, and they own the Star Wars
they own everything. They pretty much own everyone.
So if you and I don't not to beat a dead horse because I know we've talked about this like 2 times now, but Star Wars. If you look at the Star Wars, even though I appreciate it because I think it demonstrates why the original story was good and why the idea behind the original story was good because it perpetuates that idea of the hero's journey. Like that's what I think is good.
You're alluding to the fact that you're far kinder to that movie than I am, but for me, as an aside, for me it did its job. Got me excited about the series again. I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
Yeah, but the point of it is that they took an entertaining film and then they created a new version of it that is doing well globally, right?
Yeah, because the global phenomenon.
Right. And so then we should talk about the next Captain America movie because we haven't really talked about that yet.
Right.
So that's been a international success and domestic success.
Yes.
And it is, not that we should put ourselves too staunchly into one position, but I would argue that it's probably the last of the true good movies that we'll see. Like, we'll probably start to see.
Oh, a lot of diminishing returns now?
Yeah. With the Marvel superhero movies.
Yeah, see, I'm in the camp that we've already gotten there.
I know. That's why I said not that we want to go.
Yeah, again, we discussed this before we started filming. I'm interested to see how that movie played internationally. Because North America, you probably say more people were probably in Team... I'm guessing more people were in Team Cap.
They'll sympathize with him more.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, from a foreign perspective, if you think about... different countries' involvement in United Nations and how the Americans circumvented the United Nations when they started the war in Iraq and all the. I'm wondering if they sympathized more with Iron Man 4, and I'm wondering if that's why maybe it did a little better. Because.
And not because Tony Stark.
And not because it's Tony Stark, because it's more of a. Yeah, it makes sense to have an organization that keeps these guys in check, and then Captain America's like, well, I've just been through that with S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't think it's a good idea. We're not perfect, but we should still be the ones to pick and choose. And I'm wondering if the foreign market are like typical cowboy American, like Captain America. Of course he'd say that, because that's an American attitude, like, do what's right and ask for forgiveness later.
Yeah,
right?
and Tony Stark's a futurist. He's more of a globalist. He's more...
Exactly, and a lot of, especially European countries, think that way, right?
Well, yeah, we'll probably see, and just looking at the numbers, we saw that Avengers was probably the point where it started to shift from being domestically, the films did well, to the point where they were doing better internationally.
Yeah, we were looking at the numbers, and I think they were more like a 55-45, or even like a 45% domestic, and that's taking into account the fact that it's a smaller market even than the rest of the world combined, right?
So if the Avengers was Phase 1, the end of Phase 1, and then Age of Ultron was the end of Phase 2.
That's right.
Then what we're starting to see now... Or wait, was that the end or the start?
It was the end of Phase 2.
So Captain America Civil War is the start
of Phase 3.
Right. So we'll see Infinity Wars is the end.
Yes.
So we're starting to see... We'll probably see it pushes even more so.
Probably.
So if you compare to those three films...
I hope they still retain at least a decent quality. Like, even if they're not as good critically, if they're not as good as some of the other films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I hope they're at least so good. Like, even if they're not like a 90% Rotten Tomatoes, maybe they're like a 70, 75. I'd take that. I mean,
that's still
pretty good.
Still a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
It's not like something...
It's not like Suicide Squad. So I've heard. I haven't seen...
I saw it. It deserved its 26%.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's talk about a movie that... Because we talked about Civil War, which we've both seen. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of talked about Suicide Squad, which I have seen, you haven't.
Right.
Let's talk about a movie that neither of us have seen.
Right.
Warcraft.
Right, Warcraft. I have zero desire to see. Full disclosure, I've never played the game, not one.
Yeah.
So I have no attachment to it that way. So no nostalgic attachment, no late night gaming nights, and I am a gamer.
Yeah.
So it's not like I didn't have the opportunity to play it, but it's...
You understand what it is.
I understand what it is as a property, but I've never been drawn to it.
Right.
So full disclosure there.
And I've played it, and I've played StarCraft. I haven't played StarCraft 2, but that's okay. I don't think that matters.
No, I don't think so either. Probably not.
But, World of Warcraft, all those types of properties are... And what's interesting about it, because we talked about this as well, but those started out as a domestic property, but they were quickly turned into global properties.
Right, yeah.
And this is in the 90s. Like, this is a long time ago.
Yeah, as soon as they figured out that there was a global market for gaming.
It almost happened overnight. Blizzard was on it. They just jumped on that. And, and people joke about this, but Korean people played to death, almost.
Yeah.
The StarCraft games. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine Warcraft...
Yeah, you hear news stories all the time. It's like, he just didn't... He just played so much that he just stopped eating. You're like, wow.
But that demonstrates that there's something intrinsically entertaining about those games.
There must be. I mean, that speaks almost to more of an addictive personality, but still. There has to be something about it that's addictive, right?
Yeah. But a lot of people who are in North America were expecting this to be a well-made, good movie. Right. When, in fact, it was never going to be that kind of film. Because it's not... That's not the kind of property that it is. It's not. it's an entertainment film.
Yeah, it is. Now, I've heard some talk that they intend to do a much more world building, much more character building, and some of the other, like, if they were to get to make subsequent sequels, but who knows. As far as it being a property that's not about quality, you could make the argument that a lot of people didn't think Lego Movie would be either, but it's really good.
Yeah.
Because they took something that, how do you make a movie out of that? And they applied like a really unique creative vision to it, right? So it could have been done.
Yeah.
So there's examples out there. So, you know, you look at any video game movie and you're like, and then you think, why can't a good movie be made out of this?
Yeah, like what happened with Wing Commander? What happened with Mario Bros? What happened with
Double Dragon?
Double Dragon.
The Double Dragon.
Street Fighter.
Street Fighter, yeah.
Yeah, we could go on
exactly.
forever.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough,
Mortal Kombat.
I was trying not to say that. With those movies, those are entertaining movies, and you know we were trying really hard not to talk about movies from the 80s and 90s that were entertaining, that were blockbuster films.
Yeah.
I bet you if we looked back at those movies,
and
maybe they didn't do well to the point of, you know, sequels, but I bet you they probably did generate enough box office revenue that
they turned a profit. They most likely turned a profit. Yeah, for sure.
So
it's an interesting. So it goes back to, again, right? The novelty was there then because it was new or new-ish.
Yeah.
And now it's just not anymore because we get just a deluge of tentpole films all year round, and especially in the summer, there's one a giant blockbuster tentpole coming out every other week. So
yeah, well, and I think I read an article somewhere saying that by 2017 or 2018, there should be a tentpole movie being released every week of the calendar year.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, right?
It's
just so it's driven it to that point, and then as a result, the audience has responded with, well, it better be game changing or it better be good.
Because you're not going to watch them all.
That's right.
You have to. Pick and choose.
Exactly.
So, what's going to drive those movies' success internationally?
Yeah, exactly. And so it'll be interesting to see if the pattern holds the same over a long period of time, or maybe even a short period of time because of, you know, social media and all those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I you know, there's been a lot of talk about the death of film. Not to, you know, jump off the heels of our last episode, but
right.
There's that idea out there that film is slowly losing its luster, but I think that's not true. I think it's losing its luster to local markets.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing a resurgence of television being the place to go to for storytelling. Right?
Yeah.
There's still good examples of films that do well internationally that still do well domestically, and we didn't touch on them, but like Life of Pi, or Skyfall. I know Skyfall is a continuation of a well-established franchise.
Yeah, but the latest movie didn't do all that great. So
right.
Because again, quality, right? Because Skyfall's good, and Spectre's not so good.
Yeah. So they exist. They just are infrequent. So we'll see. I think we'll see a maturation of product over time.
Yeah.
It may not be in the next 5 years.
It might even be in the next decade. But it might take a while to get there. But yeah, I think there'll be, and like I said, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think, Chris? Did we cover everything?
Yeah, I think we got it. Yeah.
And this is a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different episode. What did you think of this episode? Do you think our different approach was good? Do you like our examples? Do you disagree with them? Are there maybe some nostalgic movies that you could give us examples of where perhaps the quality didn't hold up over time? Do you have any ideas about how the foreign markets might evolve? Feel free to comment below, like the video, or even better, share.
Until next time, I'm Tim.
And I'm Chris.
And this is Crosstalk.